We're going to call the meeting to order. It is 6:30. If everybody would please stand, rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any adjustments to the agenda?
I have none this evening.
The approval of minutes from the November 10th meeting.
I move to approve the minutes of the November 10, 2015 board meeting as presented.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Communications and correspondence.
We had 2 letters of resignation that should have come through with your packet. One from JV softball coach at the high school, Rebecca Silsby, and one from our data specialist at the department, Reggie Lozado.
Item F, public participation. Is anybody who would like to present to the board? All right. Item G, administrators' reports. Dan Clifford, you're up.
Good evening. You have my report. Just a couple things I want to touch on is first, Into the Woods. So if you haven't seen that, it's a terrific show. And there is still the December 10th, 11th, and 12th with the dinner show on Saturday night, and they're still taking tickets and people for that. So all the information's on our Facebook page, but it is worth a night going to. It is about 2 hours and 45 minutes. A lot of entertainment and a lot of talent there. And so the only thing that I really want to touch on tonight is the bar program. And so the freshman team has decided that they want to take on this new challenge. And so it's building assets, reducing risks. And what it is, it's a federal grant, so it doesn't cost us anything. And they are recruiting schools, especially from Maine. They have some schools in Maine that are already in it, and so they kind of targeted us and wanted to know if we wanted to be a part of it. And we have 2 freshman teams, and we do probably about 85% of the freshman teaming that the bar delivers. So it's really not going to be that much of a change for us. But the freshman team, a couple went to a conference early in the fall at Noble High School. For 2 days, and then another freshman teacher was at a conference, and they spoke about bar. High school in Maine spoke about bar, and she attended that. So they gathered information, came back with this information, came to me, and they're excited to start it for next year. And what it is there's a school in Minneapolis called St. Louis Park High School, and it's a suburb of Minneapolis, but they draw kids from the city. And so they were really struggling with their graduation rate and passing courses, in general, and it was all starting their freshman year. And so the guidance counselor there came up with a program, teaming, to help these students. And they have about 1,200 students, so about 300 freshmen. And so they have, I think it's 10 teams or something like that. And they put this program together. And now their graduation rate is one of the highest in Minnesota, and it's a school that has done very, very well. And they started this 12 years ago. And so they took their information and sent it to other schools, and then there was 4 that were chosen for a federal grant, and they did this for 3 years. And University of Minnesota tracked all of the data. And it just expanded and expanded, and then they went to Washington, D.C., and they got an I-3 federal grant. And so now they have schools in California, South Carolina, Tennessee, Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Oregon right now. And so they're just getting more and more schools on board. And what I would love to see our school do is have teaming grades 9 through 12, and we can do that. And we'll start at the freshman year. So it's really just kind of doing what we're doing now, and just adding a little bit more to it, not too much, but a little bit more, because we're definitely on the right track. And that was the other thing why they recruited us. They took a look at our freshman program that we have already, and it really won't be much of an adjustment. So the freshman team's excited about it. We'll start it next year. They have a visiting team that will come in and visit us 3 times a year. All of our data for grades and NUIAs, if we choose to go in NUIAs, they send them right to University of Minnesota. And so we have a person crunching all of our data all the time and giving us feedback. And so I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to really help us. And the other part of the teaming part is called the risk review team. And the risk review team oversees the other 2 teams, and these are really at-risk kids. And we have a risk review team now, and it's myself, the assistant principal, athletic director, 2 guidance counselors, and our social worker. And that's what's on our risk review team. And these are at-risk freshmen. We start with freshmen, now we've expanded it grades 9 through 12. And we're all responsible for 2 or 3 students, and we check in with them sometimes 2 days a week, but at least once a week, and just see how they're doing and what's going on in their lives. And these are kids that are homeless or may have had a death in the family recently or something like that. So real at-risk kids that may be leaving school at any time. And that's part of the BAR program also. So when you hear about BAR next year, and I'll bring in data, this year, but mostly next year with the University of Minnesota, then you'll know exactly what we're talking about. But we're excited about it. We're going through the process right now with the application, and but yeah, that's what you'll hear a lot of next year.
So this is going to focus on our freshman class, grades, the 9th grade.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yep. The reason being is data shows that 90% of school dropouts had a negative experience their freshman year. And so that's why all the concentration is teaming on that freshman year to make it successful. So, the year ends and they have 6 or 7 credits, they're on their way to graduation. If they have 2 or 3, they're already behind. They become a junior, and they're, could be, almost 20 credits away, 18 credits away. They're probably not going to stay in school. Yep.
So the program, Dan, is identifying high-risk kids and then doing what?
Yeah, well,
exactly?
the risk review is the high at-risk kids.
Uh-huh.
The regular teaming is just, so you split the freshman class in half, and one team has all of these students. So for your 4 core, your English, your math, social studies, and science, and they're doing it now, and they meet during the school day, and they talk about these kids. And what's good about it is all the answers are in the room. So, and what they do is they split them up. So, like, I'm on the sophomore team this year because we didn't have enough, and I have 21 students that I'm responsible for. And so every Monday I go on Infinite Campus, and we have this Google Doc sheet that we share, and I input their grades. And then we meet on Tuesday and Wednesday, and we go through, and then on Fridays we contact parents. And that's what the freshman team is doing also. So they're my 20 kids for the year, and I check Infinite Campus. They do it on Mondays, the freshman team. And so they're just, it's great for communication. It's great communication with the students and with the parents. So you're just on top of them every single week. You know how they're doing. And then if you see, slippage, then you can ask questions, what's going on, something at home, it could be. And then if they find that, then they'll refer them to the risk review team, to us. And then we follow up with those students. Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff was stuff that you had in place, before the BAR program. What does the BAR program add to what you were already doing?
So, risk review a little bit more will be a little bit more of an addition because we'll need more people involved in that part of it. And the other part is looking at assets, because the BAR stands for Building Assets, Reducing Risks, and it's the 40 assets, 40 successful assets. And so one of the first things that they'll do, the students will, is they take a self-survey, and it's with these 40 assets, and they kind of check off what assets they have. And then what you try to do is you want them to have about 28 to 30 assets. That's usually the makeup of a successful person. And then you follow their assets through the year, and then they'll do the same thing. They'll take the survey in the spring. So it's kind of individual confidence building, you know, in a way. So that's part of it. The other part is it's called iTime, and there's a curriculum for this. And so once a week, the freshmen go through, you know, a lot of freshmen are teenagers, you know, they're more into what they're doing, and that's why the I is there, you know, me. So it's called iTime. And so they don't do academics for that period. And it's about, you know, it could be absolutely anything. There's a whole curriculum, and there's about 15 topics you can cover. But if students start struggling on testing or something like that, then an iTime is how do you prepare for a test. Right off, it's usually about how to budget your time, how to do homework, community service.
Building on those assets that they may be lacking.
Building on those assets, exactly. Yep.
Nice.
And the team, they divide up when they're going to do the iTime. So if I'm the English teacher and it's my turn to do iTime, you know, on this day, all my classes are going to do iTime. Then the next week, science will do it. So as a teacher, you only have to give up one period a month. So it's not really bad. And the kids do enjoy it. You know, they like it. It's just kind of, you know, 50 minutes of talking about me. You know, that's what they do. Yep. It's a good program.
Good. Excellent.
Any other questions?
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
I'm going to be Jim Newitt tonight and Amy Roper. I'll start with Jim Newitt. At the middle level in school news, our first trimester is now over. We've been using a new grading protocol, which basically means the grades numerically are the same, but we are no longer accepting any student taking a 0 for any paper or any assessment, any what do we call them, a summative assessment at the end of a unit has to be made up if the child is failing that. So all grades have to be above a 70, which this is, in our mind, preparing kids for that shift to proficiency-based learning where we're not going to accept anything less than proficiency. Well, at least now we're starting with nothing less than a 70 on this numeric scale. Some kids will go home with incompletes this coming Monday when report cards are given out because they haven't made up all their assessments to a passing degree. And what's very nice, Rachel wrote a lovely grant that will allow us to actually pay teachers to stay longer than normal after school to work with students. We talked about ed techs utilizing some of that time between 1:30 and 3 on Friday during PLC time to work with students so that we're trying to catch those kids and not just let them accept a failing grade or not just have those kids fail. So we want them, just like in proficiency-based, we want them to get the content before they walk out the door. So that's a nice shift, we feel. Kind of hand in hand with that shift is an instructional model, which is called the workshop model, that instead of just sitting and getting, that has happened for centuries, maybe at least decades, the students are much more actively involved in their learning where a mini lesson is provided for the students and then the students have tasks that they have to accomplish to show that they're meeting these standards. So that's been a shift. We've taken 4 teachers, myself and Rachel, to another nearby school to see that model in action. Every school in the district had a couple hours worth of that type of training over the last workshop days, which Rachel may talk about. But teachers are making that shift, and I see it when I go into the classroom, and instead of teachers doing a lot of talking, you're seeing a lot of kids doing a lot of working. So it's a real positive shift from my perspective. Another thing that's very nice is that Walmart in town here has done this annually. They give us 20 gift cards at $50 a piece to hand out to grade level teams to help defray costs. So each team, they're always spending money on kids, so it's nice to be able to give them something back. So thank you, Walmart, for that. In co-curricular news, we're very fortunate to get a JV cheerleading coach. Her name is Caitlin Whitney. We had our first games today, so Caitlin was there along with our veteran coaches for both basketball and cheering, and April Clifford just gave the report that our JV girls pulled out the victory, come from behind style,
Very nice.
which was good, and that followed the varsity having a really good game as well. and this was against one of the Bangor schools. So that was a good way to start the season. And we also had our first chess meet today, and I coordinated so that chess meets happen when we have home games because the cafeteria is free, because the cheerleaders are in the gym. And that works out pretty well. And we have like 100 kids from all kinds of towns come up by and play chess. So that was our first chess event.
Nice.
Probably the best musical ever took place at the end of November. The Lion King Jr. Was a fabulous show, and that last Friday night, the place was packed. I mean, we had, 250 people anyway. For us, that's a big crowd, and a great show. And the Lion King will also become our show choir's performance for the coming show choir season. Their first rehearsal is tomorrow, but Mr. Stevenson's a pretty smart director, do the musical in the fall and follow with the show choir doing the same show. So the kids are very familiar with the music, and you only have to make costumes once. And the costumes, believe me, a lot of work went into those, and all done by parents. I think primarily a grandparent. In parent news, first trimester, as I mentioned, is over. The report cards go home this coming Monday, so please be looking for those. We have a volunteer training this coming Thursday, day after tomorrow, 6 o'clock in the library. Mr. McCluskey does those, and that allows parents to get into the classrooms. And field days are a long way away, but come June, parents are going to want to go around with their kids to field day, and you need to go through the training first. So here's an opportunity in 2 days. We had a very nice turnout for the holiday parade. I'll say far more elementary students than middle school students, but parents walked with their younger kids, and it was a big crowd. In fact, we were really spread out. So I don't know how our singing was, but we looked pretty good number-wise. Now I'm Mrs. Roper. Hello, everybody. Sorry, I couldn't resist. As you know, we are a focused school. This is because we have some academic needs, particularly with the gap between our special ed population and the general population as far as test scores go. And we've had work to do to help decrease that gap. And we've done a lot in the past year. Our first year of this is closing up at the end of this month. There's a website where we put all our data. It's called Industar, which people are welcome to visit. Mrs. Roper would like to thank the people on the K-8 leadership team that are working on this. And those folks are Janet Adler, Jeannie Kell, Patricia April, Rochelle Brown, Aurora Stickle, Kelly Rudolph, Patty French-Eaton, Lori Johnson, Jane Stackpole, April Clifford, Lynn Mannix, me for joining Mrs. Peterson Roper on that work. So she's really been the driving force for that committee, to give her the tip of the hat. And we're all there working together. It's a nice K-8 crew. 74 elementary students received perfect attendance over the first trimester, and they got a bracelet for their efforts. So they were pretty excited, I'm sure. The elementary grades do a vacation reading challenge, and over Thanksgiving break, 47% of the kids read 6 or more days over that about 10-day break, and we're hoping to crack the 55% mark for the coming vacation over the holidays. And also, Mrs. Roper, she's getting good with the video. She puts these little video clips on our website of the kids reading, and she's got 15 more of those coming out by the end of the week. She can't resist. She comes in and shows me these things. I've seen them. They're good. Elementary grades will also be sending out what they're terming progress reports as opposed to rank cards this coming Monday. Parents will also notice some changes in the reports. Whatever scale had been used in the past is being replaced by a 1 to 4 scale, as well as an NYA, not yet assessed. So if the child is at the 4 level, he or she's exceeding standards, 3 is meeting, 4 is making progress, and 1 is not there. She writes, as you know, the Common Core standards have been based on end-of-year benchmarks. We're moving in that direction and reporting our reading levels For example, if the end of the year benchmark in first grade is a J level and a child is reading under that level, they would have a 2, which means developing. I said making progress, but the term I think they're using is developing. There will be a letter going home with the progress report, so explaining that scale so that parents know what they're seeing. In PTF news, our first movie night is coming up a week from this Friday on the 18th. The movie starts at 6. We don't know what the movie is yet because kids are voting on it this week, but that certainly will be announced, and we certainly encourage wearing pajamas to movie night. In holiday cheer, with PTF support, we plan to hold our second annual holiday cheer gift pack and wrap on Wednesday, the 23rd of December. That's the day before the holiday break. This year, grades K through 7, 8th grade is passing on it, but the kids pick a gift from like a gift table, and then they wrap it, and they can take it home and give it to mom or the aunt or the grandparent, whoever it may be. Community members help them wrap the gift, and we're looking for more of that. And it's just a real positive time. A lot of wrapping going on. Thank you for listening to Mr. Newitt and Mrs. Roper. Oh, yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Tim. Okay. Hi, Rachel.
Good evening. How is everybody? It's nice to see you all. We just wrapped up our November professional development days. We had 2 packed days of lots of professional development, teachers being able to work together to develop curriculum. That included vertical alignment, where we had kindergarten through 12th grade representatives in all of the content areas being able to collaborate and talk about their practice and talk about scope and sequence and making continuous learning in each of those content areas. We had Sharon Greeny and Candace Bray and Bill Zellick as consultants joining us and sharing their expertise in proficiency-based instruction, in word work and centers during differentiated instruction, as well as talking about the development of these practices and how it's going. So those different folks were able to facilitate conversations with the teachers, and at the end of those 2 days, they met with all of us in the leadership team at the school and kind of shared their impressions of what teachers were telling them, the questions they were asking, and their impressions of where the school district is as a whole in terms of professional development. So that was very helpful for us to not only be able to have them share their expertise with the teachers, but then also give us some feedback of where our next steps are. So that was really a meaningful time. I know the teachers enjoyed the time they had to work together on assessments and working in Atlas, for example, and many reports came back of just being exhausted. They had a lot of information coming to them over those 2 days. Given our limited amounts of professional development days, we were able to pack a lot in, and I think everyone looked forward to a few days to decompress and process that afterwards. So now for our future professional development, even though it is only December, we're already thinking about next year. We've been able to actually today secure the contract with Ann Benninghoff, who is a noted, renowned teaching consultant and has done some excellent work with the focused leadership when Amy here was discussing working in the K-8 leadership team. One of the opportunities that our teachers were given by the fact that we are identified as a focused school were to attend some workshops with Ann Benninghoff in the state, and the teachers who attended, as well as the leadership, Lynn Maddox and Amy Roper, were very, very impressed with the power of her work, and so we have been able to secure her for our opening day. So I'm very excited about that, and she works a lot with teachers K-12 on strategies to continue our work on proficiency-based education. So that's exciting, even though it's far off in the distance. It is something we can look forward to. Just yesterday, I met with the curriculum instruction and assessment team and got their feedback about how the professional days went. They were instrumental in creating the schedules and developing the work for those 2 days. And then we were able to kind of debrief and talk about how they felt it went. And again, that's where some of the impression I got of people being overwhelmed with all the information that was out there, but it was good stuff. And then now we're talking about building a 3-year professional development plan. So this last meeting we'll have December 21st. We're going to map out some subcommittees with that group. We'll be working on streamlining writing rubrics throughout the district, talking about a 3-year professional development plan with the Atlas mapping system, working on developing a course of study for all of our teachers to look at research and articles and assessment training for proficiency-based instruction, and also talking about the type of consultants we'd like to bring in the future. So we're going to have 4 subgroups working for the rest of the year with some strategies in mind to be able to have an end of the year, a 3-year professional development plan mapped out with all those categories. So that was some really good work yesterday and some good planning. And finally, we're having the Down East Educational Partnership is the curriculum coordinators for Hancock County that work with the Hancock County superintendents. And we're hosting a Dine and Discuss workshop tomorrow night at HCTC for the Hancock County World Language teachers with our World Language representative from the DOE. They are often folks who don't get to talk to each other much because they are few and far between. And so we actually, with the coordination of our curriculum coordinators, been able to give them a place to meet and to discuss and to talk about best practices and proficiency-based education in world languages. All 3 of our teachers have committed to attend, and we're looking forward to what they are learning there. Do you have any questions for me?
That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you. To you.
Good evening, members of the board, members of the audience and viewing public. Start off tonight with a quick update on the Teacher Principal Evaluation Steering Committee work. Work continues on the development of the pilot teacher and principal evaluation program. The committee conducted a training on November 23rd with all the teachers who are going to be part of the pilot on how to write student learning objectives. And I think, as I mentioned last month, these are objectives of growth that all the students in their period of instruction, whether it be a class, a unit, semester, where they will predict how much their students are going to grow, and will measure that over a period of time. Our committee put on a nice training with the pilot participants, and the pilot participants really found it beneficial and useful. We're going to meet again on December 18th with that group so they can actually write those student learning objectives and tailor them to a period of instruction that they will do sometime between January and March, which is when the pilot's going to take place. As I said in the last month's report, the pilot will include work on the SLOs and looking at how students in each teacher's class and period of instruction grew. But also, the Marshall evaluation rubrics and multiple evaluation visits are going to take place during that period of time. Now, as I said, the pilot will begin officially the first week of January and run through the end of March, and the committee would like to do a more detailed presentation for you at either the January board meeting or the January workshop. I think you'll find that informative and helpful. The other piece that we're doing along the way is we've developed all of the forms that are necessary, and we're in the process of developing a handbook that will be shared with staff at the end of this year, once we've come to conclusion on what the final format of the program is going to be, get board approval, and submit to the Department of Ed for approval. So it's really some good work, and the committee's doing an excellent job. Another piece that I'm pleased to talk about tonight is next steps for the mission and vision work. As you see on the agenda tonight, we're asking you to consider and approve the mission and vision for the Ellsworth School Department. And a lot of good work went into that, and we'll talk about that when we get to the item. But the next step after that is approved is to actually convene another stakeholder group and develop a strategic plan for the Ellsworth School Department. And we're talking a 3 to 5 year plan where we get very specific about what's in the vision and mission and what we want to accomplish. Certainly there will be pieces of that plan that relate to proficiency-based instruction. There'll be pieces that relate to use of technology as an instructional and learning tool. There'll be pieces of school culture, and I suspect there'll be other pieces that relate to those pieces in there. And we'll talk more about that as we move forward. Even though the system was initiated yesterday, we're using the same system that we use for storm notification and emergency notification to make automated calls for student absences. And reporting it to you tonight so you're aware of it, but also so that members of the general public are reminded that when your students are absent and we haven't received a call or a note and we don't know, you're going to get a call. And it's our way of making sure that parents are aware if their kids are out, and also making sure that we can get the data on why they're out. If parents want to modify the means by which they're communicated to, be it text, email, phone call, they can simply call their child's school. One piece I'd also like to report, and this is something I notified you folks about yesterday, as a result of some unfortunate situations in our school system, we've had a few instances of possession of marijuana in our schools. Okay? It's a very sad situation. However, along with those instances, we've had some reports of potential presence of marijuana in our schools from parents. We've also had students come and report it to administration. So one of the things that I did, I convened administrators to meet with our local law enforcement partners and talk about how we can not just react, but be proactive in our approach to addressing situations where there may be substances in our schools. Okay. One of the pieces that we decided to do was a canine search. And in accord with policy, we made a written request to law enforcement and conducted that canine search yesterday. Okay. On the positive side of things, even though the dogs indicated an interest in some of the lockers, search of those lockers that the dogs indicated on produced no quantities of substances. That's a positive sign. However, the fact that they indicated meant that there was the presence of smell of marijuana either in the locker or in the contents of the locker at some point. With that being said, you may ask, why are we doing that? Well, part of our goal, as we've talked about, is making the Ellsworth School Department once again the premier school system in the state of Maine. It's not just academics and extracurricular activities that lead us to that. It's the school culture, the school environment, and school safety. Okay? You will hear people say when there's an instance of marijuana reported in a school or bullying reported in a school, well, I'm sure that happens in all schools. Okay? That's an attitude that we don't want to take in the city of Ellsworth for our schools. Okay? We do not want to have drugs in our schools. So we decided to take the step to not only make ourselves a premier school system academically and extracurricularly, but also culturally and safety-wise. Okay. So I want the board to be aware of that. I want the members of the general public to be aware of that. That we're going to continue to work with our law enforcement. We're going to continue to work with our staff and students, and have our staff and students come forward if they have reports or see or witness anything that is a cause for concern. But we're also going to continue to work with our law enforcement to make sure that we not just work to keep substances out of the schools, but work to intervene with students who may have challenges and issues, and work to help them move forward and move forward positively. So, any questions on that? Okay. Mentioned earlier on, we talked about communication. 2 letters of resignation, one from Reggie Lazard, our IT data specialist, and one from Rebecca Silsby, JV softball coach at the high school, have accepted both of those resignations on your behalf. And as Mr. Newitt reported, I think it was Mr. Newitt, right? Or was it Mrs. Roper? Yeah. Reported on a new hire of a cheering coach at EEMS, Caitlin Whitney. This coming Thursday, the Hancock County Superintendents are going to have their annual meeting and breakfast with the county legislators. And the purpose of that meeting is to have an opportunity for the superintendents to talk with the legislators about the upcoming legislative session and some of the bills that have been put forth. Now, we have not yet seen the final list of bills, but I do have a couple that I will mention to you tonight, and we'll be talking about these as we move forward. One of them is LD 1394, which is a list of recommendations from the Commission to study the components of the EPS formula. And what those include are potential funding for additional dollars for pre-K, additional dollars for summer school and after-school programs, which not all school systems are able to offer, and significant professional development for teachers and administrators. Now, the recommendations that came from that commission, which I had the good fortune to serve on, there's no way that the legislature is going to be able to fund all of them. But they're really worthy causes, they're worthy initiatives, and there will be some good discussion at the legislative level on those this year. LD 1459 is an act to delay statewide assessment for 1 year. As you all know, Smarter Balance was removed after 1 year, and the state has entered into a contract with Measured Progress for that assessment this coming year. There's a bill that was submitted that would propose to delay on an optional basis administering those assessments, but leave it up to the local school system whether they want to administer them in the coming year. And our staff, our IT department, our administrators, our teachers, our ed techs, they're up to the task of making that assessment work. And when you look at what happened with Smarter Balance last year, there was a lot of prep work that took place in the early part of the calendar year to make us ready to take that and take those assessments successfully. It will be the same type of effort this year. So regardless of that particular bill, if the bill does pass, we'll have to have a conversation locally on what's in the best interest of our students, because we all agree that assessment is important. And there will be a couple of other ones that I won't go into detail on. One will be an act to improve teaching assignments in Maine schools. And what this is a bill that would serve to make the assignment of teaching classes, grade levels, and so forth, a subject of negotiation. Okay. An act to facilitate homegrown education in Maine, which is a bill that would serve to remove ELA and math from the Common Core and revert back to the previous set of standards. There'll be a lot of discussion on that, and as I know you're aware, on a national level, there are a number of states that have backed away from the Common Core. And again, the piece for us is to make sure that we have rigorous and appropriate standards for our students. And LD 419 is another piece that is an act to promote academic opportunities for Maine youth in the summer months, and that will tie into the first bill that I talked about. But again, it's another opportunity, particularly when you're looking at the advancement to a proficiency-based model. A 9-month school year, 7:30 to 3 every day, will not be the only time that learning can take place in a proficiency-based world. There will need to be other times. Summer times, and as you heard Mr. Newitt talk about earlier, after school, vacation time, those are all times in which learning can take place. So we look forward to that meeting with legislators on Thursday, and hopefully we're going to get a full list of the bills that are going to be considered. And last piece that I would report on tonight, we're all familiar with the No Child Left Behind Act, which has been in place for a number of years. As you may have heard, the United States House of Representatives voted to pass the replacement for that, which is known as the Every Student Succeeds Act. They voted to pass that, and the Senate is expected to vote on it tomorrow. In general, one of the pieces is it returns more authority of accountability to the states and local districts in terms of assessment. It doesn't take assessment away, it scales it back a little bit, but it returns more authority and autonomy to the states. The other piece that it does with assessments, and I think this is a good thing, rather than focus on a set of assessments that takes place in the fall or the spring of the year, that snapshot assessment, it allows other factors that can contribute to the success of students to be considered in whether a school is making adequate progress. Things along the lines of what we talked about a few minutes ago, school climate and school culture, student engagement, AP course completion, and things of that nature. Those are things that may not show up on the assessments that take place in the fall or the spring, but they're things that are valid measurements of how well students perform and how well a school performs. So there'll be more news coming on that. That concludes my report, unless you have questions.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay. I don't believe we have any committee reports for tonight or old business. So on to new business. Staff presentation. We're doing the outing club. Yes. Thank you.
Good evening. Last year, I was here right about the same time asking for permission to have an outing club and to take kids outdoors. And over the course of last year, we had 6 day trips, 2 overnights, and a handful of workshops on fly fishing, fire building, winter skills. And we ended up having a total of about 50 student experiences outside, which was absolutely fantastic. So far this year, we've had 3 day trips and almost 20 student experiences outside. We've had fly fishing workshops, fire building workshops. We were working with our stoves this afternoon, and they're these nice little wood burning stoves. And students were learning how to use them. One, use them safely, how to get fires started effectively. And in 2 weeks, right before the holiday break, we'll end up firing those up again and roasting marshmallows before things get started. But our reasoning behind having an outing club at school is, yes, so that we can get kids outside, but most of our students end up spending so much time inside. Whether, yes, it's at school, but once they go home, they end up having a lot of screen time, whether it's in front of the TV, in front of their iPads, computers, video games, whatever it is, they're not necessarily outside running around as I remember doing as I was growing up. And outing clubs end up connecting students, yes, to their natural world, but to each other. And it ends up helping them build self-confidence, independence, leadership, initiative, problem solving, and definitely those interpersonal skills within the group and with each other. They've been shown to increase focus, motivation, learn and perform better in school by reducing stress, depression, anxiety, promoting cooperative learning, and civic responsibility, which are all fantastic things that I've definitely seen with the kids over the past year. And it definitely helps them stay healthier, raise their physical activity levels, and, yeah, connects them to the outdoors. Our objective is to have safe, fun trips. You'll notice that safe was the first thing there, while connecting kids to the outdoors. Right now, one of the other advisors and I, Matthias has wilderness first aid. I'm a wilderness first responder, as well as having my lifeguard certification. So whenever we're out on the rivers, lakes, out in the woods, we definitely have that safety equipment handy so that we are making sure that we're minimizing risk and keeping kids as safe as possible while outside. We end up looking at our programs often, and we end up looking at, are we doing trips that kids are interested in? Are they coming back and doing more with us? Are they keeping their grades up and doing what they need to in order to stay eligible, yes, for sports and whatnot, but also for their clubs? Are they succeeding? And last year, it was absolutely fantastic watching some of the students that I worked with in class go out and try things that they hadn't done before. I think about one fishing trip, and yes, we went out fishing. No, we didn't catch anything. But I went out on my paddleboard and was paddling around, and then the students were trying it and paddling around. And there was one student that I'd been working with before school for a few months, catching up on work that she'd missed. And it was absolutely amazing to watch her in a different setting succeed. And those are experiences that I wouldn't necessarily see in the classroom. And they're experiences that students wouldn't necessarily have. We hiked up Door Mountain back in October, and I had students look at me and they're like, "Yeah, Ms. Keefe, I've never been up this mountain. I've never been up Cadillac." And I'm looking at them and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I moved up here 3 years ago and you've never been up here and you've lived here your entire life. How does that happen?" So these are definitely experiences that students wouldn't necessarily have either within the school or out in their daily lives. And that's amazing to see. Possible trips that we're definitely looking at hiking and camping out in Acadia, Baxter. Different paddling trips on nearby lakes, rivers, on the Sounds. The kids went wall climbing up at UMO last year and had an absolute blast. There are students that are interested in an overnight hut trip out in New Hampshire to one of the Appalachian Mountain Club's High Mountain Huts. Just so you know, I worked out there for a number of years, including in many of the huts that we would end up going to. Going over to Hidden Valley Nature Center in Jefferson, biking, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, other trips. They really want to go downhill skiing. And we've already been working on, okay, what are the safety what are the safety guidelines that we would need to go through? What do the chaperones need to do? Where are chaperones going to be located so that should something happen, students are able to find them, get any questions answered, whatever. Let's see. We went whitewater rafting in the spring with a number of other Maine outing clubs with an organization called Teens to Trails. And Teens to Trails is a nonprofit outside of, or in Portland, Maine, that ends up working with outing clubs around the state to help them get going, provide grant money, resources, any number of things. They also end up helping out with the Association of Maine Outing Clubs, which we are currently a part of. And one of the things that we were talking about at our meeting this afternoon was, okay, they came out with the Trips Lottery. What are our first, second, third, fourth, fifth choice in this Trips Lottery? And as a member of that association, we're able, should we win or be chosen for one of those trips within that lottery, we get that trip for free. We may end up having to provide equipment or food, but our lodging is taken care of. And that's absolutely amazing. Let's see. Currently, we have about, what was my count this afternoon? About 18 active members, and then there are about 25, 30 other students that are on my mailing list that may not come by after school or have been on trips so far, but they've definitely expressed interest and want to be kept informed so that should their personal or sporting calendars permit, be able to go on different trips over the course of the rest of the year. Let's see. And then there are a number of testimonials on the back. And I've talked about the reasons why I enjoy having an outing club. But they've also said that they definitely value the chance to get to know other people from around the school that they wouldn't necessarily hang out with otherwise. They like being, yeah, Wyatt's on there. They definitely enjoy the extra incentive to get off the couch and do something with their afternoons or weekends. It allows us to have fun field trips out with friends and teachers where we're outside and moving. It's nice to get to know their teachers in a different way. We went down to Acadia to Take Pride in Acadia Day. And we were raking leaves with a number of other volunteers from around the area. And we just had so much fun. They got to, yes, we were raking leaves, but they were hanging out with us and we were just having fun raking leaves and doing our part to give back to the park. And we hope to do something similar in the spring so that we're doing our part and giving back. Yeah, so, yeah, we'd appreciate being recognized as an official club. Do you guys have any questions for me?
That was a great presentation. I was wondering if Wyatt, if you wanted to add anything as a member of the outing club.
I think the outing club is a great, addition to the high school because it's for me personally, it's a good excuse to go out and do things when I'm, stuck in my schoolwork or my other things. It's kind of reminds me that I really should get outside and do some of these things, and it's a lot of different opportunities, and there are certainly, there's a lot of different people in the group, and you get to work with people and problem solve with people you might not normally, and some of your closest friends, so it's really good.
On the note of problem solving, last winter we were ice fishing, and it was a rather windy day for ice fishing. None of us wanted to be out on the ice, so it was incredibly fortunate that We were at one of the students' camps, and we ended up playing board games and cribbage and apples to apples inside. But when we were outside, two of the students ended up rigging up this. It was almost like a sailboat. They had a sled and a tablecloth, and there they were going across the ice. It was awesome. So it's neat to see those experiences.
I think this is absolutely fabulous. I love it. Thank you for sharing.
No problem.
Thank you.
So we need a motion.
I move that we recognize the Ellsworth High School Outing Club as a formal club.
Second that. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Thank you very much. That was
Yeah.
a well done presentation.
If I may, I think we were remiss at the beginning, at least I was remiss at the beginning of the meeting for not introducing our student member of the school board, Wyatt Alexander. Wyatt, welcome to the board.
Thank you.
Okay. The mission and vision statement.
Very pleased to present to you, you should have all received it in your packet, a copy of the proposed vision and mission for the Ellsworth School Department. A lot of work has gone into this, starting early last school year. A committee that we'll recognize here in a moment, putting together a lot of work in an effort to gather data, gather information from various stakeholders, creating a survey and another means by which public meetings could be used to get that data. Surveys that resulted in probably 600 to 700 responses on the surveys, so a great deal of data. That committee came back together, held a public forum, took the trends from the data that was received through the survey, put it into even more refined sets of data that resulted in what you have here. With all that data culled down into that small form, the writing committee, which consisted of myself and Mr. Newitt, wrote many iterations of the vision, many iterations of the mission, shared that with the committee, and what you have in front of you is the result of all of that work. Mission statement is designed to be clear-cut, straightforward, and memorable. And there it is, engaging and challenging all students, and the word all is in there intentionally. And as you can see, the vision is broken down into 3 categories of what our students actively engage in: a variety of highly relevant and meaningful learning experiences that prepare them for a successful and dynamic future, and all of the bulleted items under there that our students will see. That our program provides a variety of rigorous and engaging learning opportunities that challenge all students to achieve at high levels. And the final piece is our school and community embrace the shared responsibility and commitment for educating our students. I think it's an outstanding piece of work by that committee, and I would encourage you to approve that as a new mission and vision for the Ellsworth School Department.
I move that we approve the vision and mission statement as presented and recommended by the Vision and Mission Steering Committee.
I second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you. And if I may, members, just recognize the people who served on that committee. Again, we had a variety of constituent groups from the school board. Brenda Thomas served. Former teacher at Ellsworth High School, Andrea Beardsley. Administrator in the school system, Jim Newitt. Pam Perkins from the City Council. Peter Farragut from the YMCA. Annie Sargent, another school administrator. Mickey Sumter from the city's Economic Development Office. A familiar name who is retired, Carl Lusby. 2 parents, Chastity Cash and Amy Phillips. Another teacher from EEMS, Judy Deedy, and we did have a student representing us, and that's our student board member, Wyatt Alexander. So I'd like to thank all the people on that committee for their hard work, to thank all the people who participated by submitting survey responses and participating in the public forums, and also thank Mr. Newitt for his work in helping to do the writing, and recognize our facilitator, Mary Jane McCallum, who you folks all had a chance to meet, who came in and really helped guide that committee through their work. So thank you very much for approving that.
All right. So I think we are going to enter into an executive session to talk about ratification of some negotiated agreements. Before that, shall we read off our calendar announcements?
Yes.
for upcoming meetings, we have a school board workshop meeting that we need to determine a date for. We don't have that quite yet.
We didn't put a date in because the typical time that we would meet would be, I believe, the
The third Tuesday of the month, which
Second.
would be Christmas week.
Christmas week. And
All right. Well,
would you
We
people like to
can-
push that into the beginning of the next year? Do you want to have it that, I think it would make sense to push it to the beginning of the next year.
Yep.
Mhm.
all right. Do you want to have Teresa put something out just to?
I will.
Okay. And the policy committee meeting, we're just redoing the committees. We'll talk about that later also, but perhaps it's a better time to establish a meeting time once we have those policies.
Once that
committees
committee is finalized, yes,
finalized, yeah.
and we have a couple of sets of policies that we'd like to get to work on. So
All right.
that would be good.
And our next school board meeting is Tuesday, January 12th, right here in the City Hall Council Chambers at 6:30 in the evening. All right. So, you want to go ahead and, yep.
I move we enter executive session under 1 MRSA 20A 405 6A to discuss a personnel issue.
I second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you.